Well, hello and welcome to the Tennis Podcast, coming to you on Australian Open Draw Day, otherwise known as Matt Roberts' third favourite day of the year. We are currently situated in the Creator Lounge inside the Media Centre, which we're not entirely sure we're qualified to be in. I'm hoping we're all feeling creative today.
I feel particularly creative.
Creative and sort of vaguely Gen Z. Might be relying on you for that, Matt.
I was going to say, I feel less now.
I'm feeling
Matt,
pressure to create.
You're right, you're a zillennial, aren't you? You're right on the cusp. But I feel you're more spiritually millennial.
I think that's fair.
But anyway, for today only, we are content creators. Matt, let's cut straight to it. Marks out of 10 for the Australian Open 2026 draw.
I would say 10 for effort. You know, they saw what they did last year, putting it on the steps outside the second court here. And I think they elevated a little bit, or attempted to elevate anyway, by making it in an even more public setting. And we had crowd there gathered round, and it was nice. It was a really good effort. It was what I want to see. You know, they'd advertised this draw in advance. They'd put the stream up in advance. They made a thing of it, which is all I really ask. I would say about a 6 for execution, though, because they'd forgotten some pretty crucial elements like sight lines, being able to see the draw.
I'm having figure skating flashbacks here.
There was shit in the way.
Execution and marks.
You know, there was a podium in the way, the trophy was in the way, people were in the way. But my sources are telling me the broadcast stream of it could have been better. They kept cutting away from the actual draw, and it was quite hard to follow. So that's disappointing. But overall, I think we come out at an 8 out of 10 there, if you put effort and execution together, which is where we were with the 1-point slam last night. 8 out of 10 is good. I had a good time. I enjoyed draw day.
I get the feeling that David might go higher than an 8 out of 10. But then I also get the feeling, David, that your bar is slightly lower than Matt's.
And also, he might not have thought about it in such a sort of forensic way as me.
No, we come at it in different ways. And also, I have different sight lines to you because I'm 6'7". So I could see over those things that were in your way.
Matt was like, we've got to move. We've got to move.
Well, I noticed.
David was like, it's okay, I can read it out for you. Matt was like, no, we've got to move.
It was so quickly a problem. I couldn't see a quarter of the draw.
Suddenly everything was very stressed in our row. But look, you know, to me, they created a feeling of everyone's invited. Anybody who wanted to see the draw could surround the room that we were in, or the sectioned off area that we were in, and it was undercover so that there's shade, and they think of those things here. And this time it wasn't sort of sectioned off from the public in a way that they're behind a rope. You know, I just thought this is the draw is a dramatic thing that shapes the whole tournament and gives anybody who wanted to be there who'd got a grounds pass today, and it's easy to get in this place today, could feel part of it, I thought. So, you know, job done for me.
Yeah, I'm coming at it from a less forensic angle.
It's okay, everyone is. You're the normal one here.
I just really enjoyed the vibe of it. It annoyed me slightly less than you, but obviously not being able to actually see the content of the draw was a problem. But I really enjoyed the vibe, and they clearly get draws.
Absolutely. Which
we support. And I had a nice time. I did miss the marching band. If any powers that be are listening, either here in this Creator Lounge or at a later date, I just thought the marching band was great last year.
It is very cool that Yannick Sinner walked from the player lounge, and it's all the way through the public area, through the crowds, with the trophy in his hands, and just walks onto the stage to talk to everybody.
And it would have been Madison Keys too, except she's in Adelaide, and they do. I think that's just a known thing here. The defending champions appear at the draw. I remember in 2012 or 2013, I had a very minor role here in helping organise the draw backstage, and I think it was Linar defending. Anyway, no, it was Kim Clijsters. Kim Clijsters was defending champion, and whoever it would have been, Nadal, something like that. And they came. Djokovic is a safe bet, isn't it? Anyway,
now you're just naming tennis players.
They both came. I was like, that's really cool. And then another year I was involved as well, and they did it in the city, and the defending champions arrived by boat or barge, even perhaps, with the trophies and everything, and that was really cool. That's a thing that they do here, and it's great. But it is even greater when they're accompanied by a marching band. Right, the content of the draw. Matt, what are the headlines?
Well, if we start with the women's draw, that was how they started, and I think quite a balanced draw, I would say. Personally, I wanted to see Sabalenka and Goff come out in the same half, so I was pleased about that. Because that's happened. Because it's such a fascinating matchup for me. We've seen what Coco Gauff has done to Aryna Sabalenka in a couple of Grand Slam finals. I want to see it again, and okay, they could well have met in the final if they were on opposite halves, but anything to just slightly increase the probability of that, I'm here for. Not that Gauff-Swiatek isn't really interesting as well. It absolutely is. It's the absolute beauty of where the women's game is right now. There are so many interesting matchups, but just a personal taste thing, really. Goff Sabalenka. I'm keen to see it again. And then, of course, that leaves Anisimova in the Swiatek section if they both get to the semi-finals. But honestly, that's the big difference, isn't it, between the men's and women's draw? I think I'm looking at the draw big picture for the women, and I'm sort of putting Sabalenka through quite confidently, but I'm not really doing it for anyone else. Everyone else, there were potential real tests along the way. Whereas in the men's draw, you do look at it and you think, well, that's good for Alcaraz, that's good for Sinner, that's good for Alcaraz, that's good for Sinner. You have to work quite hard to find something that isn't Alcaraz Sinner at the end. Whereas for the women, you could make a case for so many of them. Yeah,
the format of the draw here is that the names the players other than the seeds are automated. They just appear and then they draw the seeds. And as you pointed out, Matt, the men's draw without the seeds in looked pretty ropey. But yeah, sticking with the women's, David, your headlines, your biggest takeaways from this in terms of the tournament and the big contenders. I feel like there's two separate ways of looking at this. When I look at a draw, I'm very much less able to process the projecting everything forward. I'm always looking at fun round ones and the ooh la la moments, and I think there were a lot of those in both draws, good round one matches, and we will talk about those. But in terms of the impact of the draw on the eventual winners of this tournament and how the latter stages might play out, what are your headlines? Yeah,
it's interesting because of the manner of this draw and because of its execution and it not being that easy to see it in its entirety. I was this time picking out those first round bangers or looking out for those more than I was the overall context. And it was only really when I came back into the media centre, put them up there on the screen and in front of me and properly had a look, that I could really get any sense of what this might all mean for the tournament.
A look with glasses on, no less. Yeah. David has just put his glasses on.
I have just put them on mid-podcast, and I am...
It's David's version of the business bun.
I'm very taken aback by the names I've written down, because I must have written them down without the glasses on.
You did write a lot of them down during a Roger Federer press conference.
Yeah, I did do that. And
so more on that later,
I've mapped out all the quarterfinals, both draws, and the champions.
Okay.
So, but look, there are very few shocks that, in my mind, that I've got here. Really, I think the one name, and I actually I actually wrote down the name Paolini and scribbled it out in the quarterfinals and put Kostyuk in, which which was interesting to me because I really struggled in that section of the draw. That is to have the right to meet Sabalenka in David Law underestimating Jasmine Paolini will come as no surprise to anybody, and that may well be my mistake again.
I put Paolini /Kostyuk /Alexandrova on that line.
I've just written tough draw next to Paolini because, like third round she could have to play Iva Jovic, who is, started the season well, feels like a bit of a coming force, and then potential fourth round against either Alexandrova or Kostyuk, as you say. So that is tough, I think, for Paolini, and that is before she even gets to Sabalenka in the quarters. So
I feel like there's some opportunity for certain young players, and I actually include Kostyuk, even though she's been around for a while, as I feel form is going to come through, and like pedigree is going to come through here. But I do look at a player like Mboko, for instance, as somebody who's in that top half, that section of the draw as well, and maybe she's about to just break through. I'm not predicting that, but that's one of the things I'm looking forward to witnessing over the course of the tournament.
It's an interesting one with Mboko, isn't it? She would be a potential fourth round opponent for Sabalenka. Raducanu is the seeded player that Sabalenka is scheduled to play in round 3, and then it would be Mboko or Towson in round 4. And Mboko is playing awesome tennis. She's just beaten Madison Keys, but it's the curse of doing well the week before a slam. I think the stage she's at in her career, this is the right decision, even if it costs her here, like going deep in a WTA 500, getting these wins. Even if she were to crash out in round 1 to who she got, Emerson Jones,
the sensation.
She's got a sensation. I still think that's good news, but equally it could be a springboard. She could be coming in here without too much time to think about the pressure or talk to many media who are all hyping her up, and she just carries on the form from Adelaide and on she goes.
I do feel like if Mboko had not had that wrist injury last summer, I'd have been fascinated to see where she would have ended up, because the form was there and the raw materials of a game are there.
Well, she's got some strapping going on. And maybe she's going to be a player that's always got some kind of strapping on the go. Maybe that's not an alarming thing. We don't really have enough data points about her, but yeah, she's in an interesting spot, isn't she, just at this moment?
Yeah, definitely. And that is an interesting round 1 against Emerson Jones, like seeing Mboko, who I think for a lot of time in her career will have had the crowd on her side, exciting youngster that obviously really helped her in Canada last year. Like, just seeing her in that environment, I think, will be interesting. Just speaking of a couple of other people in this section, we mentioned Raducanu. She is getting tough Grand Slam draws really at the moment, isn't she? Like, she keeps losing to the biggest names in the sport. If you think last year it was Sabalenka, it was Swiatek, it was Rybakina. Here she is probably going to have to face Sabalenka again. Like, it doesn't feel like she's quite getting the luck of the draws at the moment. And
it's particularly brutal because she's finally seeded. This is the first time she's been seeded at a slam in a while, and it's still a bum draw.
Yeah.
Okay, she's not facing Sabalenka in round 2.
Yeah, and it's okay to get there, I would say, if she's fit. And then the other name I would just circle is your gal, David, Clara Towson.
Oh yeah.
Well, because she's played Sabalenka tough
David's
in the
done
past.
Quite a bit of distancing himself from Clara Towson, I would say.
Look, I have yet to see the Clara Towson that beat Jennifer Brady at that French Open when she dashed my dreams of Brady doing what I said she would do and reach the final all those years ago. She's had really good results. Look, she's the 14th seed. This is a woman who's had results, but it's never really looked as spectacular as it did that day. Maybe a couple of times against Sabalenka, actually.
That's it. That's kind of why I raised it.
She has a ball strike. There aren't many players. One of the reasons I'm excited about Kostyuk is just, I know she got beaten fairly handily the other day, but some of the time in rallies, it looked like she could handle Sabalenka. And Towson looks like that against her. There's some players, that, and for the most part, I'd probably include Raducanu in this. There are some players that look really good until they face a Sabalenka. Mukova had this last week. You suddenly run into this player who can just overwhelm you with her game. But there's some players who can stand up to it. Yeah, I've ended up with what looks like quite a boring quarterfinal lineup in terms of there are very few surprises, but really exciting in terms of the fact that the strength of women's tennis is such that if those all happened, I'd be delighted. They'd be mouth-watering.
Does that mean you've got Goff Andreeva happening in that second quarter?
Yeah, and actually, when you look at Andreeva, I think it's quite a big call because her draw is not pleasant. I mean, Donna Vekic first round. I know Vekic is not playing anything like what she has, but you don't really want her in the first round. This is somebody who's reached a Grand Slam semi-final. Maria Sakkari potentially second round, who suddenly looks a bit like that player that was formidable a few years ago, certainly to a level. Diana Yastremska's a potential third-round opponent, and then maybe Elina Svitolina or a Barbara. There's a barnstorm in first round between Barbara Krejcikova, and Diana Schneider, with the potential winner of that going through to meet an Elina Svitolina in round 3, and they're all in Andreeva's last 16 section, aren't they? So that is a tough draw.
Tough. And she's still going this week as well as we record. She's just playing a lot to then come into this draw. I think that's a big ask for Mira Andreeva to make it all the way through there. Obviously, with the caveat that it looks tough on paper and it might not end up being all these players, but there's just so many of them. You feel like she's going to have to beat some good names even to get to the quarterfinals.
I just end up, I don't know how you two feel about it, I end up coming out on feeling, well, but she's still the best one. And so I think she will end up doing it.
Asterisk Krejcikova there.
Yes,
I mean,
true.
Krejcikova's top level
is a Wimbledon champion, and a French Open champion, so that's fair.
You just never know.
I accept that.
I do not know where Krejcikova is, sort of form or fitness wise. Really,
I mean, she played. I thought she played well at the United Cup, but had the injury concerns. It's a classic Krejcikova experience, really. I'd circle Svitolina from that little section, actually.
Fun.
Yeah. And just think, we know typically that her matches against Russian players, there is a kind of sort of even extra intensity, and you got Schneider in there, you got Andreeva. Like it could be a lot, those matches.
Schneider played the Gazprom event, didn't she? What about the section just above it, the Coco Gauff section, potential second round with Venus Williams, if Venus can come through, Olga Danilovic in round 1, Karolina Mukova, potential fourth round opponent for Gauff, if Mukova can come through a tricky early couple of rounds, Jacqueline Christian round 1, and most likely Alexandra Ayala in round 2.
Oh. Yeah. That would be great.
And
that's a good little section.
Emma Navarro, potential round 3 for Mukova in that area. But also on Gauff, she might have to face Vondrousova.
Or Hayley Baptiste.
Those two play each other, Baptiste and Vondrousova. And there's both Maniera, who's a very good player. So there's probably going to be some tough contests, and yet I'd still probably expect Gauff to win them all.
Because the best tennis I've seen Gauff play in, well, certainly this year and for a while, is against the best opponent she's played this year and in a while, Iga Świątek. Like, I know it's such a cliche with Gauff, but, the biggest threat is herself, right? And the second serve that we saw last night. It's very hard to make Coco Gauff predictions, especially as we know she can play not particularly well and still win Grand Slams.
Yeah, she lost to Badosa here last year, which is not a result I would have anticipated, and yet an example of a player with a big game and a big shot who can just make you run out of time. And there are players like that in this draw, but I still expect the pedigree of Goff to win. I think, like, in terms of predictions, you've probably got to go with that.
So do we all think we're getting Goff Sabalenka?
Yeah.
Yeah, sitting here right now, I would predict that.
What about the other half of the draw, the more open half, I would say? I mean, Matt wouldn't, because Amanda Anisimova's in it.
And I'd say the same.
Take it away.
Yeah, I
Oh, I like what you've got written down there, David. I've just seen it.
I've got her in the final. Yeah, I mean, it's
a good draw, isn't it?
It's and listen, she had a bit of treatment in a match the other day. She lost to Marta Kostyuk. You know, it's difficult to know exactly what you're going to get. And,
beat Daniel Medvedev, though.
Yeah, in the one-pointer. But more of him later. Yeah, Anisimova, I think once she gets through sort of first rounds, and she's got somebody I must admit I don't know very well, Simona Valter. I think maybe is how you pronounce the Swiss player's
Valter.
name. But that's who she got first round. Siniakova potential second round. She's in a Sophia Kenin, or I tell you what, imagine how intense that match is going to be. Sophia Kenin against Peyton Stearns in the first round.
You've got Tatiana Maria lurking there. We saw what she did to Anisimova at Queen's, but I do think that was pretty grass.
Yeah, I think
specific.
So. And also, I don't think Anisimova is as good as she is now. She looks ready to me. To go deep here.
That's it. I was mostly looking at the first few rounds for Anisimova because I do think she needs to get herself into this season and into this tournament. Like, she's got to get going, I think, and then she can build up the momentum that we saw last year.
She's that kind of player, isn't she?
I think so. Yeah, I really do. Having said that, though, you know, the sort of quarterfinals, semis, I think could be pretty opponent specific here, whether we're talking about this as a good draw or not, because, you know, Jessica Pegula is her potential quarterfinal opponent. She's never beaten her. She's 0-3, and okay, she hasn't played her as she is now, but there's just something about that matchup that she's not enjoyed in the past. And then we saw what Rybakina did to her at the WTA finals, you know, and suddenly it felt a bit like the Rybakina ball strike was overpowering the Anisimova ball strike. So if Rybakina's there in the latter stages, she's playing well, and that could be a problem. But I like the early rounds for Anisimova, and then if she were to face, for example, Swiatek, well, she showed in the back half of last year with those 2 wins over her that she's okay in that matchup. So, you know, I think you could make a case either way for the latter stages here, depending on who the opponent is.
Both of those would be semi-finals, wouldn't they? Either Swiatek or Rybakina for Anisimova would be a semi-final with... I've got Swiatek through to the quarters to face, I've written Rybakina/Bencic in that bottom quarter.
Yeah, and understandably so. I've ended up with Rybakina. I find it quite hard to pick against her other than against the very top players. I think Swiatek, I tend to go with her most of the time, and it's interesting, she's actually in the section, I think 4th round section with Naomi Osaka, is Swiatek, which at the US Open I was definitely picking Osaka, and I'm not doing that this time. I don't have the same degree of confidence in her that I had last summer.
I've written Osaka/Lees, which would be a 4th round match.
Second round.
Second round, and the winner of that would potentially go on to face Swiatek in the 4th round. But yeah, Osaka/Lees in the second round, and
Lees not easy against Castella.
No,
first up.
Castella's just a pest, isn't she?
Yeah, basically.
But I have gone with Swiatek, and if I was pressed to pick between Rybakina and Bencic, I too would pick Rybakina. I think the top level.
That would be a big
top
test
level is higher.
Of the new Bencic serve. I would suggest against the Rybakina return. Just thinking about it as a matchup. I think it's a good draw for Swiatek early here. Like I do like her route through to the quarters. David's obviously flagged Osaka, who leaps out. We've mentioned Lise, but other than that, I do like this for Swiatek.
Do you think the top section, not quarter because Anisimova is in it, but the section above Anisimova, the Pegula Keys section, do you think that is potentially the most open? I realise Madison Keys is the defending champion and she's not had a bad start to the season, but she did get beaten by Victoria Mboko today. She's not in the form she was in last year. She did win Adelaide before Melbourne. Of course, none of us predicted she would have been Melbourne, but
in hindsight, the signs were there.
In hindsight, the signs were there, and she's not in that form right now. And look, I am always guilty of underestimating Jessica Pegula. Like, I do think she will reach that quarter-final to face Madison Keys, but it feels the most open section to me.
To meet her in the fourth round?
The Keys Pegula 8th feels to me the most open section. If there's going to be a shock,
I pretty confidently wrote Pegula's name down to face Anisimova in the quarterfinals.
So she would be beating Madison Keys,
or at least coming through that section, whether she faces her or not.
You've got Leylah Fernandez in there.
But Fernandez has got my Fantasy League pick, Janice Chen, in round 1, who has not had a good start to the season. But that's a fun match.
And that's, I was talking to David earlier, and that's kind of the point we made. There's a lot of those sort of round 1 matches in the women's draw, especially where, like, if you know, there's a lot of fun matches between players like that. Like, they're not going to bring in the real casual fans, but Fernandez Chen, given the way Chen's been rising and Fernandez is such a good watch, like that's an exciting first round match, I think.
Yeah, let's just whiz through a few of those just to mark people's cards for matches to look out for over the first few days. I mean, a lot of them we've picked out already, but these are the ones that I've circled. Sabalenka against Sarah Rakitimanja-Rajana. Look, I think Sabalenka's going to win that handily, but take a look at Rakitimanja-Rajana because she is a really talented player. Like, she's at the beginning of her curve, for sure, but I think the raw materials are there. I watched her play at the United Cup in Perth. I think I've seen her play on the TV before that, but I really think she's a talent, and it'd just be fun to see her on the big stage. I think Mboko against Emerson Jones is obviously something to be very excited about. Mboko against the sensation,
and she's the sensation because she was literally called that on the front cover of Vogue.
On the front cover of Australian Vogue.
I mean,
Australia is very excited about this girl. And look, she's a junior world number 1. She's extremely talented. I commentated on her in round 1 last year, and she got taken to school by Elena Rybakina. It was adult against child. It was a total mismatch. And she is small, Emerson Jones. Like, that is just something she's going to have to contend with. It doesn't mean she can't have success, and she's definitely got something about her, and without question she seems to come a long way in 12 months. But my goodness me, are Australia excited about this kid.
Is that a bit early to be going on the front cover of a magazine of that type?
I was shocked to see her on the... I don't know, magazines aren't what they were, are they? But like Vogue still carries a real cachet. I was surprised to see her on the front cover of Vogue. I was surprised that she was getting publicity that mainstream. Like, I understand why the tennis world in Australia is very excited about her. She's junior world number 1. That's a big deal. In Great Britain, we'd be getting very excited if we had a prospect that promising. But outside of the tennis world,
is it cool? I mean, it's pretty cool on one hand, you could say. Tennis is getting off the tennis sports pages, and suddenly it's on the front cover of Vogue, and if she's enjoying it, then great. But it also does set her up in a way for pressure, I suppose, more so coming into an event like this.
Yeah, because the world is how it is. I mean, look at... yeah, of course, if she fails to fulfil her talent, the narrative will be probably forever now. Well, too many endorsements, too many appearances on the cover of Australian Vogue. Got distracted. Like, we know how it is for women. But I don't think that's a reason for her not to be doing it. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think, how old is she, 17? What 17-year-old is turning down the chance to be on the cover of Vogue? Being called a sensation? Amazing. Other first rounds that I've picked out, this is still the top half of the draw. Hailey Baptiste against Marketa Vondrousova, assuming Vondrousova's fit. That's delicious. Karolina Mukova against Jacqueline Christian, I think is cool. Barbara Krejcikova against Diana Schneider. And, of course, Donna Vekic against Mira Andreeva.
I've got one other star next to Putintseva Hadaj-Mayer, just for drama.
Okay.
And the winner of that probably plays Kostyuk. It's a very intense section of the draw that I'm into it.
Top half, Leylah Fernandez and Janice Chen, which we've mentioned. Elena Ostapenko against Rebecca Shramkova. Sophia Kenin against Peyton Stearns for an intensity off. Matt, I know you're a big fan of Kaya Juvan, so I've circled her against Elena Rybakina. She does hit a nice ball, Juvan.
Yes, and she's on the comeback. She took a break from the sport. Her father died. I've just always liked Kaya Juvan and just want good things for her. Really, she speaks, really impressively. I think.
Yeah. Elena Rybakina round one is not good.
It's not ideal. It's not great for my fantasy team.
Teresa Valentova against Maya Joint. I'm into that. And we have Belinda Bencic against Katie Bolter. Katie Bolter, far from the player we've seen in the last couple of years, but zero pressure and gets to play as Aussie Katie.
Tough draw for her, though, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
She was probably hoping to get a bit of momentum going, and suddenly you draw the most informed player in the world, pretty much.
Sorana Castello against Eva Lees. Ludmila Samsonova against Laura Siegmund. Hate myself for circling that, but there we are. Sonny Cartel against Anna Kalinskaya is the last one that I've circled. That's from the bottom section of the draw. Okay, who do we have in the finals, and who do we have winning?
Sabalenka winning for me.
Against?
Anisimova. Although that would be 3 Grand Slam final losses in a row, and I'm not sure any of us can cope with that.
Well, we've done our brackets entirely independently and come up with exactly the same result. I don't know what that says.
It
Maybe
says
we've been spending too much time
a lot
together.
of time with each other.
But that's exactly what I've got. Sabalenka beating Anisimova.
I didn't really get
final.
that far because we hadn't actually decided to do brackets. I thought I was being very diligent by writing names on my draw sheet.
I had no intention of doing this, and then I found myself doing it in a Roger Federer press conference.
Look, I have Sabalenka in the final for sure, and I think probably, regardless of who she plays, she'll be the favourite. But that was the case in New York, and I found myself picking Amanda Anisimova anyway because I find her kind of irresistible. And I did,
and look, I might be going against myself here because I do remember thinking last year, if I see Goff Sabalenka again, I need to remember what that match has looked like, and it's not a case of Sabalenka can't beat Coco Gauff. She's got a number of wins against her, but put the pressure of a Grand Slam semi-final on the line. And I know Sabalenka's beaten Goff in that situation a couple of years ago. But that French Open was so impactful. And, has Sabalenka learned and grown from that? That's why I want to see it. And right here, right now, I'm picking Sabalenka to make it through. But if we actually get there, on the day, I might suddenly think, God, remember what Goff does to Sabalenka, and how do you hit through that? Sabalenka's got to play a pretty perfect match to win that, and so that's what I'm really excited about.
Amanda Anisimova hasn't played a Grand Slam final as a blonde yet.
What a stat!
She's staying blonde forever if she wins a slam as a blonde, isn't she? I would have thought.
Surely. Yeah.
Maybe Matt Roberts will be too. We need it to happen here because Amanda Anisimova has very helpfully posted on Instagram.
Also thanks to Priscilla Hom, who's always involved.
Always involved. She posted content from the salon, getting her hair dyed here in Melbourne. So we have a salon.
It's the most
so
authentic
perfect.
experience
Matt
possible.
could go to the very same salon.
It's quite near
He'd get
our.
the same
It's quite near
stylist.
our apartment.
Yeah, Matt's looked it up.
Is it in our price range?
I think we can fork out for... We are, David, we're in a creator lounge.
Yeah.
We are content creators.
Yeah.
There is no better content.
No. Although, I also would be quite amused if you used that one that you bring with you to every Grand Slam to do
I
it
actually
yourself.
didn't bring it here.
Oh, okay.
Have to be the salon then.
Yeah.
Book it. Sunday morning in 2 weeks' time.
Right, okay, that is it for the women's draw, and that is it for part 1. We'll be back in part 2 to talk about the men's draw, and in part 3 to talk about Roger Federer, who winked at David Law today. But first, a word from our sponsors of this episode and every episode of the tennis podcast during the Australian Open. It is the magnificent Steve Furgal's International Tennis Tours, the Premium Hospitality and Experience Provider. That's never been said in a creator studio before, has it?
It's what it was built for.
Or maybe it has. #ad. They are not only our sponsors, not only the Premium Hospitality and Experience Provider, but they are also an official provider of ticket and travel packages for your very favourite, David, Roland-Garros.
I know, I feel a bit bad choosing my favourites amongst the slams, but sorry, US Open, Australian Open and Wimbledon, there it is.
There you go. And if you would like to go and have a David Law-esque experience, possibly even meet David, bask in his glow...
Don't put him off.
Then the best way to do that is booking tickets through Steve Furgal's International Tennis Tours. They offer tennis fans a trusted way to experience what is truly one of the sport's most iconic tournaments in one of the world's most beautiful cities. And this is big, folks. Tennis podcast listeners can now save 10% on Roland-Garros ticket packages. And that offer is valid through until February the 28th. You use the code PARIS10, PARIS 10, and you go to toursfortennis.com/podcast. That's tours, the number 4 tennis.com/podcast, and the code is PARIS10. We'll see you there. Welcome back to part 2 of today's Draw Day tennis podcast, where we turn our attention to the men's singles draw at the Australian Open. What are our headlines, David? Could it be a possible Alcaraz final?
No. It isn't on my draw.
I really wasn't expecting
Bloody
that.
hell, we should have led the pod with that.
There's your bloody headline.
Okay, well, expand.
Well,
Can you tell this wasn't planned for? I'm genuinely
I'm
so
shook.
it was, I mean, again, it was during the Roger Federer press conference. I was listening to what he was saying, and I did find it very interesting.
David,
Have you got
ask his
Grigor
question.
Dimitrov in the final? Because he really talked up Grigor Dimitrov.
Yeah, in my question to Roger, that came up, so more of that later. But no, I stop looking at me like that. It's a perfectly legitimate
It is, but
draw.
please tell
Have
me.
you got Flavio
Choice.
Caboli in the
No,
have you got
I haven't.
Medvedev?
Well, look, to use...
Is it Medvedev? You said more on him later.
To use
Oh my God, it's Medvedev.
Oh my
use-
God. He's back.
words from the traitors...
Oh, which we all watched. It's the first time we've all watched The Traitors in Melbourne together, and it was really special.
Oh, and a word for the traitors. My sister texted me last night, are you more excited about the traitors or the draw? Which was a perfect question.
Yeah.
And I said the draw.
particularly now.
But actually,
When
it was traitors.
When we were watching The Traitors, Matt said, God, the draw's going to have to be bloody good.
Was it good enough, or...?
The Traitors was more than an 8 out of 10. I'll
Oh,
say
the
that
traitors
much.
was more than 8 out of 10, yeah. Oh.
Anyway, David.
Anyway, back to this.
Well, Daniel, I've written your name down.
Oh my God, what's
Wow.
happening?
David. You've seen the Medvedev-Alcaraz matchup.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen? Do you think Medvedev's taking him out?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
US Open style?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
You've seen enough.
You've gone big on Brisbane.
I didn't plan this. I didn't come into the Australian Open thinking Medvedev's going to be in the final.
Okay, is this a Medvedev prediction or is it an Alcaraz prediction?
Both. It's the combination that leads to the conclusion. Because, I mean, look, I just went through the draw and ended up with Medvedev facing Zverev, although I think I'm not that confident Zverev gets there, but overall I think looking at his draw, I'd still end up with him there. I think Medvedev takes out Zverev because he always tends to beat him when it really matters, and ends up playing Alcaraz in the semis. And then I think you do get the Juan Carlos Ferrero factor coming in. And I think by then Medvedev is playing relentless tennis, just metronomic tennis, and you've got to beat the guy. And Alcaraz is perfectly equipped and capable of doing it. As you said, we've seen it so many times. But he's never done it here. And look, I know that I said a few weeks ago that I'm picking Swiatek and Alcaraz to complete the career slam.
You're actually picking neither.
However, since then,
life comes at you fast.
Ferrero's out.
Yeah.
That is a major factor. Swiatek doesn't look convincing, really, by her standards, and Sabalenka looks so convincing. So that, you know, I mean, she's not even going to face Sabalenka in my draw because Anisimova will win that match if they face each other. But in the end,
David's been very convinced by what he's seen in Brisbane, clearly.
in the end, I've written your name down, Daniel, to reach the final.
And then have you got Medvedev losing another Australian Open final?
Yes, I have.
To Sinner.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do a Medvedev's near misses AO relived in 10 years' time.
Matt, what have you got happening in the top half of the men's draw?
Well, I'm actually thrilled that David has said what he said. Like, I'm really, really invested in whether this ends up happening. Personally, I've not seen enough from Medvedev to think that he's got a win over Alcaraz deep in a slam in him right now. I take the point about Alcaraz and Ferrero, and that is an unknown about how much that is going to impact things. It's like, for me, it's one of those things where, and maybe this is bad analysis, but it's one of those things where I'll be probably mentioning it when it happens rather than predicting that it is going to totally throw Alcaraz off. I just sort of think his level above the rest of the field is so high that I could see it potentially impacting him against Sinner in the final if we're talking about Alcaraz being a level below where he was. But I still think, given what we've seen over the last couple of years and the way he's distanced himself from someone like Medvedev, it would have to be quite a dramatic drop in my mind for Alcaraz to lose that match to Medvedev, and I just don't really see that. I know Medvedev did beat him at that US Open, but generally Alcaraz has enjoyed that matchup and the ability to exploit the space that Medvedev leaves.
Do you think we're getting that matchup? Do you think that
I do, actually.
will be the semi?
I actually do, yeah.
So you've got Medvedev beating Zverev in the second quarter and Alcaraz beating, well, I've put Diminor/Bublik/Kaboli.
I've got Diminor finding his way through a very tricky draw.
The same for you, Matt?
But without much confidence.
Yes, I think the same for me. I mean, obviously, you say a very tricky draw. Berrettini in the first round.
I'm a bit worried about Diminor, which is potentially really silly because he's the guy that delivers. He is reliable.
What's made you feel like that?
I think I don't think it necessarily suits him being the guy here. I think he's found ways to done very well at handling it, and is just a good enough tennis player that ultimately is what is brought to bear. But But I don't think a first-round draw against Matteo Berrettini is what he needs at all. I think he will be nervous about that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know, this is a place that does road to the title graphics for Thanasi Kokkinakis. Like.
Yeah. What is it for de Minaur? Just AI with him holding the trophy.
Right, exactly.
Well, I mean, he's more or less discussed in the same breath as Sinner and Alcaraz here.
Yeah, and look, he's an incredible player, and you know, he's the sixth seed. If Great Britain had a sixth seed at Wimbledon, the BBC coverage would be talking about him in the same way. It might be a slightly different vibe, but you know, because of how Brits are, but it'd be the same level of like jingoism, I think. But I think Matteo Berrettini in round one is potentially quite a problem for de Minaur. Like, he's a better tennis player in the year 2026, but Berrettini shows up for big matches. Like, I think Berrettini will look at that draw and go, okay, yeah,
if he's fully fit,
this is what I'm here for. Moments, you know.
We saw his level at the end of last year in that Davis Cup. He was awesome, and we just haven't seen him in singles at big tournaments very often fully fit, not for a long time. So if he is, without the pressure, like you say, Catherine, he can go into Australia, court he likes, no pressure, and swing.
Yeah, big time. You know, he's the only player that's beaten Carlos Alcaraz in 5 sets, and he did it here at the Australian Open. Okay, a few years ago, but like, I think he'll puff his chest out and rise to that. And I think that's close.
5-set classic all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He leads the head-to-head, Berrettini, 3-2. And I do remember a match of theirs at Wimbledon a couple of years ago where Berrettini really threw him around and won that handily. I know, obviously, grass, different situation. But I am backing de Minaur just to come through.
And I get that. Like, he has earned people believing in his reliability.
Yeah, and Berrettini did play very well at the end of last season. He didn't play anyone in de Minaur's class.
What about new top tenor Alexander Bublik? He's got a tough round one against Jensen Brooksby and Kaboli in that section as well. Speaking of players that played well at the end of last season.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I find Alexander Bublik forever fascinating as a tennis proposition. Apart from, you know, he's a bit out there on a number of other levels, but as just a tennis prospect, he's already massively exceeded what I ever thought he would do. I think he's kind of done more than he ever thought he would do too. If you go back a year and he was 80 in the world, he's put it all together, and suddenly he's a top 10 player, and he's so dangerous, and yet he could come unstuck in the first round because he's that kind of guy. And Kaboli, I'd love to see that match. I think that's a really good match on paper. I'd love to see it. You know,
that'd be a third round Bublik Kaboli.
Super fast baseliner with electric ground strokes against this huge serving, mercurial, unpredictable presence. Want to see that.
And I'd also love to see Kaboli de Minaur. Like, I think that would be a fun match as well.
That would be a quarterfinal. No, a fourth round. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It would be. This would be to likely face Alcaraz in the quarterfinal, and then obviously Medvedev in the semis.
I was just going to say with Bublik, I remember he obviously came in to Wimbledon last year with suddenly people talking about him, bit of hype, and actually we picked up on it in his media day. He was different. He was chippy, and I think the pressure was. Even if he said he wasn't feeling it, you could tell he was a different person, and he lost in round one. Here, the situation's a bit different in that I don't think people are talking about him in quite the same way they were at Wimbledon, because obviously there he'd just beaten Yannick Sinner on grass. But here the thing is he's just got to the top 10, and he's made no secret of how pleased he was. He said literally that was his year goal. He's done it already. And sometimes that can just lead to a little bit of a drop-off for players when they do accomplish the thing they've been chasing. And yeah, as David said, he's just very tough to read, Bublik, and I really do find him tricky. Like, I don't right here, right now, I wouldn't say he plays Alcaraz in the quarterfinals. I don't specifically pick someone to beat him. I just sort of think kind of cumulatively, I'm not sure I trust him over that many rounds over 5 sets.
No, I share the same concerns about Bublik. I would be shocked if he has the same season now this year that he had last year. I think psychologically he's quite a similar character to Kyrgios. I don't think he is going to enjoy any kind of target on his back at all. I think he wants to be an outsider, an underdog, a disruptor.
And actually, I think one of the things that is really tough when you break into the top 10 is your ranking kind of does stop going up unless you do incredible things, really incredible things. It's just the nature of the elite level where the air is thinner and there are fewer opportunities. And then you've got to get used to that mentality. And I suspect he might have a few bad ones and start dropping.
Just staying with this half for a moment longer and dropping to the second quarter, how confident are we in Zverev, last year's finalist and third seed, making the quarterfinals to face what we all think is probably going to be Daniil Medvedev?
Well, I'm not that confident because, I mean, he's due to face Gabriel Diallo in the first round, who's as big as him, even taller, in fact, 6'8", huge serve. Diallo isn't in the sort of form that he was sort of 6 months ago, but he's exactly the type of profile for a tennis player that could cause Zverev real problems because he goes for his shots. He's a huge ball striker. He's a huge server. He can stay with Zverev without too much difficulty on serve if he's playing well, and then it can bring nerves and tightness into matters. And you know, I mean, Zverev has only played 2 matches, I think, so far this year. He played an exhibition the other night, and something Andy Roddick mentioned the other day is that he spoke to Zverev and that they share a preference for having a lot of matches going into a Grand Slam, proper matches, not Alcaraz, Sinner, exhibition type things. And well, Zverev hasn't had that, and he also really didn't end the year that well. So,
and he's lost to Joanna Garland.
If it gets tight, think of the players that beat Zverev last year, like Rinderknecht. I mean, there were 16 of them. But I'm talking about the Grand Slams. If you think of the players in the last couple of Grand Slams that beat him, Auger-Aliassime and Rinderknecht, people who just went for the shots and found them and got him tight and got him playing passively. I think Diallo, this might be his big chance. I don't know what sort of fitness shape he's in. It could be Alexei Popyrin in the second round, who's another big ball striker, but he's in terrible form. He hasn't won a match since the US Open. And he also doesn't beat Zverev when they play one another. So it's not a good draw for Zverev, I don't think, in those first couple of rounds. But, you know, he could have Cerundolo in round 4 or Rublev, players that have had success against him. But I still think, on balance, I'd have to put him in the quarterfinals as my expectation. But I don't say that with confidence.
There's also the element for Zverev of knowing how much of a hit his ranking will take if he doesn't get close to defending his final points from last year. It's not a ranking entirely propped up by those final points because there is such a gap between Sinner and Alcaraz and everybody else. But it would take a big hit.
Yeah.
He would start to tumble.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this draw for Zverev as potentially having a cumulative effect. You know, like he's never been a really efficient winner at Grand Slams, just getting the job done straightforwardly. He often ends up with a lot of matches and time on court in his legs. And I think we've seen slams where that has taken its toll on him. And I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of thing happens again. You know, if he ends up facing Medvedev in the quarterfinals and yet he's had to battle through a couple of long matches already, and even if he were to get through Medvedev, I think that could be a lot. And then how much has he got in the tank for Alcaraz? You know, I just think that's been the sort of pattern for Zverev over the years at these at these Grand Slams. And there are a lot of dangerous players who could take them out themselves, but I think it's more of a pack effect on Zverev that I see here. I do think Felix at the very bottom. I know we've all written Medvedev through to that quarterfinal. Like, you know, I think since the US Open last year, Auger-Aliassime's been kind of playing top 5 tennis. The only thing is, a lot of that has been in his favourable conditions, indoors. I'm interested to see whether he can bring it. And Medvedev Auger-Aliassime is the match here they played a few years ago. I think that's one of the best matches Auger-Aliassime's ever played. I know he lost it, but he was bloody good that day, and that would be a very intriguing fourth round.
There's also Lernatian,
of course,
yes.
Yes.
Now he would have to beat Felix Auger-Aliassime in round 3, but if he did, he would. It would be a potential fourth round opponent
with Medvedev.
For Medvedev.
And
I
do want to see that.
Just looking at the let's say Zverev does end up in the quarterfinals. If it's not Medvedev, it could well be Auger-Aliassime, who's beaten him twice in a row.
Right.
It could even be Rinderknecht, who beat him twice late last year. I don't think that'll be the case, by the way. I don't think Rinderknecht is likely to back up last year.
Not even the Rinderknecht guy is backing Rinderknecht.
No, I enjoy watching him, but I don't see him repeating last year.
Okay, on to the bottom half of the draw. I feel like I need to ask you now, David, have you got Jannik Sinner coming through this? Have you done something insane?
No. I've got him very, very emphatically in the final.
Do you know, he came to that draw ceremony today, brought the Norman Brooks trophy on, had a little chat with Todd Woodbridge, and then went on his way. And we were sitting on the second row, you know, just a few metres away, and it struck me even more so today seeing him from up close, the same thing that struck me last night watching him in the 1-point slam, even though he faulted to hand the win to Jordan Smith, and from the footage I saw of the exhibition he played in Seoul and all of the associated, you know, lovely content from him and Carlos Alcaraz arriving together on their private jet. Like, how much more swagger he has about him than a year ago and before, even though a year ago he was world number 1. He's the world number 2 now. There was actually a really fun clip from last night, a moment from last night when Jannik Sinner was introduced as the world number 1, and he immediately turned to Carlos Alcaraz, and like, because I think Carlos Alcaraz was distracted and he alerted him like, oh, he's just introduced me as the world number 1. It was a great reaction from Alcaraz. I'm sure you've seen it online. If you haven't, look it up. It's fun. But yeah, he's world number 2 right now. He was world number 1 a year ago. And look, part of this I think is just like time and comfort levels with being at the top of the game. Like, it's inevitable that you would get more comfortable and assured and confident with your place in the world the more time you spend there. But I also think it makes you realise, like, of course, but how affected he was by everything that was hanging over him a year ago. And we talked about that at the time and since, didn't we? And yet we also talked about how remarkably well he dealt with it and how unaffected he seemed to be by it. But I think it's incredibly clear. Like, his body language is so different.
Yeah,
like, he's really swaggering around now.
That's it. I think we mostly talked about how well he was dealing with it from a very pure tennis results perspective. You know, he was dominant during that period, and yet, yeah, when you see him on the stage and how relaxed he was, and he does have real charisma in those settings. Sinner, you know, it's different to Alcaraz's, but it's absolutely there. You can tell that he's a star, and he just gives you so much confidence, doesn't he? I mean,
he looks happy with where he is in life right now,
yeah,
and comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
And it's a good draw, isn't it? I know Fonseca's in there, but I'm not sure Fonseca's even going to play, let alone play well, given given everything we're hearing about his fitness situation. He's got Hugo Gaston in round 1, a potential 4th round with Karen Khachanov, or unexpectedly 22nd seed Luciano Darderi. That was my biggest shock from the draw. Who on earth is Luciano Darderi, and how is he 22 in the world?
Do you know what would be quite interesting? Just because I can't remember seeing it. This you may tell me they've played a million times, but I'd be quite interested to see if he played Pesci Pericard and just tried to, and if Pesci Pericard, he's won multiple matches this year already without breaking serve, and just got it into tie breaks and won the tie breaks.
I predict, David, that he will break serve in round 1. Pesci Pericard.
Yeah, he's playing against Sebastian Baez,
who's been come out of the year hot.
He's been incredible. I watched his matches at the United Cup in Perth. He's been absolutely incredible, but he was getting his serve broken a lot. Like, that's his... Even the best Sebastian Baez isn't holding serve very much.
Pesci Pericard and Sinner have never played one another. So I'd just be he was in bad form a year ago as Pesci Pericard. I saw him lose to Gaël Monfils here. And look, I know we've pointed out his deficiencies on return of serve. He did break the other day in a match he won. It does feel like quite an event, but the fact is his serve is so good now, and his volleys are good, and all the rest of it, that he's getting to so many of these tiebreaks. I'd be fascinated to see that. I think that might happen.
I would be really unfascinated by Pesci Pericard, like. Sin and Pesci Pericard.
I'm sure it'd be a terrible match. I'm not trying to pretend it'll be a great match, but I'm talking about threat levels.
Right, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I still think as much as we can rib and Pesci Pericard for those return stats, that serve is a problem for players, and it's the Isner thing, it's the Opelka thing. It is just a test, and there were times when the top players would play Isner, and they'd come through, they'd figure out a way, but he was a more threatening name than a lot of people just because of that singular weapon and how he does test you in tie breaks.
But then do you remember how worried we were about Alcaraz playing Opelka in round 1 in New York?
He's way better than Opelka, but I take your point. He is. I think he is the sort of player whose serve really goes with his physicality. He's 6'8", he's a huge guy, and his serve's even bigger than that. But it wasn't working for long periods last year in the way that he needed it to. Now, he's just started the year really strongly.
I have a question for you, Catherine. Would you rather see a 4th round of Yannick Sinner versus Giovanni and Pesci Pericard, or Yannick Sinner versus Karen Khachanov?
Oof. Novelty value, Pesci Pericard maybe. I like watching Yannick Sinner because I like his tennis, but neither of those. I'm not rushing out for either of those. I'll be browsing other options. Other potential quarterfinal opponents for Yannick Sinner. On seedings, it's Ben Shelton. I have massive concerns about his shoulder, particularly in best of 5.
Even that matchup. I know Shelton got an early win against Sinner, but Sinner has...
I'm talking about Shelton getting there.
Right, okay, yeah. But even in the matchup, Sinner has absolutely dominated that.
It hasn't even occurred to me that Sinner's not reaching the final.
No, me neither. Me neither. We spent 10 minutes talking about Giovanni and Pesci Pericard.
Trying to inject some tension into this half of the draw.
I could imagine on the day that Sinner is certainly in the semi-finals, assuming he gets there, the hardest match that he has faced was Pesci Pericard. Looking at that draw, I could imagine that being the case.
So who do you think he will face in the semi-finals?
I've got
Who's
Djokovic.
Coming through the third quarter?
I've got Djokovic, and look, I know that Djokovic has reportedly got a neck problem, and I don't necessarily have confidence that Djokovic physically can make it through that far. But he's also Novak Djokovic, who's won more than anybody else ever has in men's tennis, and he's also he's got most of the field terrified of him.
And he's in a section where there's nobody else particularly obvious to go for.
He's in a section where a lot of the other names also have fitness concerns, and I'm backing Novak Djokovic to deal with those fitness concerns the best, because we've just seen it so many times. That the other two big names in that section being Taylor Fritz, who I don't think is in a sort of acute injury situation. I think it's there absolutely, and we saw that he was diminished really at the United Cup. He didn't play his best stuff, and then we've got Mazzetti, who retired from an exhibition the other day.
It's not a good omen,
and that was a new injury. It was the elbow that seemed to be concerning him in Hong Kong, and that wasn't the elbow. I mean, I know, I'm sure it was mostly a precaution, but I don't know. Like, you do look at that section, and you do sort of think Djokovic should be the most likely one to come through it still.
Or Hubert Hurkacz.
Well,
I mean, tough round one. Hubert Hurkacz against Zizou Bergs, but
yeah, that's got a star next to it on my draw.
On the basis of United Cup form, and obviously continuation of that is by no means a given. You got to have a couple of eyes on Hubert Hurkacz. I think
he has been really surprisingly good, considering what he's had to deal with physically. 6-7 months out after knee surgery. I just think best of 5-set tennis is gonna catch up with him quite soon.
Yeah.
You've also got Jakub Mensik in there, who obviously has a win over Novak Djokovic in a big match. Not a Grand Slam match, but a Masters 1000 final.
Stefanos Tsitsipas is in there, and we're not even mentioning him.
So many one-handed backhands in that section. Musetti, Dimitrov, Tsitsipas and Wawrinka are all very close to each other in the draw. They all came out there, the one-handers.
Let's mock some cards for good round ones. I've circled, maybe I was desperate, but I've circled Tristan Schoolhate against Corentin Moutet.
Right there with you.
Just because Moutet against a sensation that should be a vibe, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I want to see
He'll wind them up.
Moutet winding up the locals here.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I've got Bublik against Brooksby circled. I've got Berrettini de Minaur, obviously Zverev, Diallo, as David was pointing out. I mean, I agree with everything you've said about Diallo and Zverev, yes, David, and yet I also know Diallo lost to Andrea Vavasori in singles this week, and I think that's embarrassing. So
I don't disagree with that. I just think
he wasn't the only one.
No, Raphael Collignon also did, and he's got Mazzetti first round, and somebody else lost him as well. Three singles wins for Andrea Vavasori.
It's like he puts a spell on these opponents, but I mean, I haven't seen Diallo play for a while, and I don't know what sort of shape he's in, all the rest of it. I just know that when I have watched him, I've thought, crikey, he carries himself with real confidence and looks like he believes he's going to go and beat anybody he plays. Whether or not that's realistic or not, he has this self-assured look about him. So, I hope he brings it. It'd be interesting.
Arnaldi Rublev, potentially interesting if Arnaldi's fit. He's got a connection to Australia, I think, Arnaldi, hasn't he? Might get a lot of support. Mazzetti Collignon, as I said, Collignon had that breakout run at the US Open, didn't he, and played well in the Davis Cup finals. He's a good player, although, as we said, did lose to Andrea Vavasori in singles. We have Dimitrov against Mahatch. Who can retire first?
Unfortunately, that is the first thought I had, but he's flying.
Mahatch have a good win today?
He did. He beat Munar straight sets into the semis.
Okay. I've done a lackluster circle around Menchik, Carreño Busta.
You do you, Catherine.
I didn't.
Why have you done that?
I was grasping. There aren't many circles on the men's draw.
I think just a match I'm interested in is whether Wawrinka can get a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Against Jera. Like, that would be a moment.
I was going to say, I actually think whether he gets a win or not, he's actually got an opponent who's going to at least let him play.
Yes.
Right.
Not just make life miserable for him. If he'd have played Pesci Pericard, for instance, he just doesn't have any rallies to play and make anybody gasp, which against Jera he will.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And
John Cain for that match, do you think?
I think,
sure.
That'd be fine. I think you could put him on maybe
I'm
not
not saying what I want.
I wouldn't
I'm saying
put him
that
on Rod Laver Arena. But
feels like what they
yeah,
would do.
I think that is. I think they might put him on the second court. I think he could play there. I think he could play Kia Arena, and all of these courts would be a vibe. I think he should go on one of the three main courts. I think Rod Laver would be too big, but one of the other two.
I think John Cain.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout.
That, it's kind of the people's... there was quite a grassroots movement for him to get a wild card, wasn't there? It feels like he would really create an atmosphere out there.
Yeah, and I just think, obviously, David's injected great intrigue and life into the men's draw, but that is the kind of moment that we're looking for in the first week, right? A Stan getting a moment that will power us through the first few days on the men's side.
Who knows? Nakashima van der Zandschulp could provide those vibes too. You just never know. Her catch Zizou Bergs, I think, is a corking
definitely.
First round. That is good. And Ben Shelton against Hugo Humbert. I know Hugo Humbert has barely won matches recently. I don't really know why. I think his ranking should be way higher than it is. But, that's a handful for Ben Shelton. If Ben Shelton's shoulder isn't quite right, he's playing this week, isn't he, Shelton? And
just that section is interesting as well. The winner of that could face Gael Monfils, who again is a vibe. But then there's also Manarino, Shelton Manarino. Think how good that's been.
There's Vachereau.
And then there's Vachereau, who I am
this is
interested in.
First Grand Slam since Shanghai. It's our first Grand Slam paying attention to Vachereau.
Qualifier / lucky loser.
that seems very fitting.
So that's the end of my circling for the men's draw. Any other ones to propose?
I've taught myself, and David's helped me, and I'm quite into Pesci Pericard Baez now.
I mean, what is the height difference there? You're talking 6'8" against. I mean, what is he?
5'6", 5'7",
5'5", 5'6". I reckon I don't think they on the ATP they never call anyone below 5'6". I feel like I don't think on the ATP bio, 5'6" is their small person limit.
David's looking it up. Okay,
I am. Yeah.
While David does that, we'll take a break and we'll be back in part 3 with the big bombshell height news and with some Roger Federer chat. Welcome back to part 3 of today's tennis podcast. What is, David, the height difference between Giovanni and Pesci Pericard and Sebastian Baez?
It is a foot and an inch. Because he's listed at a very generous 5'7".
It's always generous.
I stood next to that guy.
He is 1 metre 70, and Pesci Pericard is 2 metres and 1. According to this, I think he's a bit taller than that personally, but yes, big chap.
Can't believe he's bumped Roger Federer down from the lead item in part 3, because Roger Federer came to a press conference today. There was that moment, wasn't there, when the announcement came through. Roger Federer is on his way to the main press conference room, and it was
fun.
It was really funny. We knew he was coming. We knew he was here. He's going to be playing this exhibition opening ceremony event on Saturday night with Agassi and Hewitt and Pat Rafter and Crowded House. Unclear if they're participating in the tennis element, but
hopefully they're playing bangers. As David said earlier, I love it when David says bangers.
Bangers and duffers.
Bangers.
Yeah, me too.
Duffers.
They've got. Do you think it's going to be just a couple of songs, or do you think it's a full set?
Well, I think there's also potentially somewhere in between. I definitely don't think it's a full set, hour and a half type thing. I reckon they'll play
half an hour?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get the big one, but we'll get the biggies.
Yeah.
Okay. He's playing that on Saturday, and he's here, he's here for the tournament, isn't he? I assume they're paying him, he'll be doing loads of sponsor things. It's his first time back at the Australian Open since retiring, and of course he never played. His retirement came out of the blue a little bit. He didn't do any kind of farewell. So the opening question in this press conference from the moderator Todd Woodbridge was, this is kind of hello and goodbye all at the same time. That was after he'd walked in and immediately clocked David and winked at him, which was really, really great moment. I bristle and roll my eyes at the way people get about Roger Federer. There was a round of applause at the end of the press conference, which made me want to rip off my accreditation and
I knew that would have annoyed
distance myself from the media, like absolutely embarrassing. Yeah. But then I'm sat next to David. I'm wink adjacent, and suddenly I get it. I'm like, where's my wink? Just to be in the orbit of this guy. So it was a great little moment.
He remembers his pep talks.
He does. I can see it in his eye. He really does. And the first thing he said was, I'm a little bit nervous to be back here, like facing the media in this way, because he hasn't for so long, and it's not a normal thing to do to sit at a desk in a theatre style arena with spotlights, dimmed lighting and spotlights, and face a barrage of questions, albeit from people that are going to applaud you out of the room, and people that used to give you pep talks in lifts. But
it wasn't a barrage, was it?
No, but it's not a normal thing to do. It's just something tennis players get used to doing. Because they're doing it all the time, and I kind of believed him that he was a little bit nervous.
Listen, I mean, he handles things so lightly. I think that was something Mary Carrillo once said about him: how lightly he carries his work, and walks around the place, and it carries his greatness in that wonderfully light way, and he enjoys a lot of it. He always used to enjoy talking to the media. I don't think that has changed, but I think it's a bit like going on holiday for several weeks and then going back to work, and it all feels a bit clunky and a bit weird, and you just need to get back into the rhythm and routine of it all. And he hasn't done this for years, really, certainly at a tennis tournament. And he's coming in, he knows there's a lot of attention, and he loves it. But he kind of wants to feel as self-assured as he used to, I think, in some ways, knowing that he's actually got to go out and perform and he doesn't want him to be rubbish. He wants to be good. He wants to make people think, oh, it's that guy, I remember him, and feel the things they always used to feel, and frankly they do, because he is still him. But he's also human. I do think he was probably a bit anxious, just very slightly.
Anxious, yeah, while also being just spectacularly relaxed and at ease and happy. Like, he was asked a question, like, if you found retirement easier or harder than you thought, and he was like, way easier than I thought. Like, yeah, Roger Federer in being relaxed and happy with life, shocker. Like, he's so fine, isn't he, Roger Federer? He managed to bust the myth that Craig Tiley invented the 1-point format.
Yeah.
He was dollied up a question about whether he liked the 1-point slam, and he was like, I was out to dinner, so I didn't watch it.
Didn't watch it, but I played that before.
Yeah, he said, I watched the highlights on... He said, my phone was blowing up about it, so I watched all the highlights on... It sounds like he's a real one for falling down YouTube rabbit holes, doesn't it? He said, I watched all the highlights when I came back, and he was like, yeah, I know how hard the 1-point format can be. I've played it lots before. I've played it at weddings.
Yeah.
What sort of weddings is Roger Federer going to?
Ones where people go, Roger Federer's here. Imagine if we could play 1 point against him. Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, and where there just happens to be a tennis court. Yeah, those aren't the weddings I'm going to. David, the best answer, of course, if the press conference was to your question.
Oh. I mean, it was interesting. I thought, I don't know what, I was curious to see what you thought. I asked him, having had the opportunity to be a part of great rivalries and now witnessing one with Sinner and Alcaraz, do you find yourself imagining what your game would look like against them, and what are you seeing?
Subtext, because you do.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I quite liked how emphatic he views himself as Alcaraz in the rivalry. And, I mean, he actually ended up naming Dimitrov as the example that made him think like that, because he was at the Dimitrov-Sinner match where we all remember the traumatic facial expression that he had when
The night
Dimitrov
of the Reggie selfie.
got injured.
Like, I thought that was a classic bit of Federer humble brag, talking about watching what Dimitrov was doing to Sinner.
Yeah, I mean, because if he could do that,
Yeah,
I mean,
he
I'm
was
10
kind of
times
like,
better,
suddenly
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's how I would have
beat
played
him.
it, and that's how I would have done.
That's how I'd have gone 2 sets to love up on him at Wimbledon.
Right.
And then just, clinically won
Except
the
I
third.
wouldn't have got injured.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. But you're right. Like he clearly massively respects Sinner's game, and is so impressed with what he's doing. But he's drawn to Alcaraz because he does see some of himself in him in terms of that instinct to always, he said, play tennis on our terms and when to hit the drop shot and all that sort of thing. And that I talk about it in terms of these players being able to move on to the ball. And I've said that before, like Federer is the best I've ever seen at that, of picking up on a short ball and just taking it early, coming forward. And Alcaraz is also absolutely brilliant at that. And there is a similarity there, in mindset. And I'm not surprised that Federer is an Alcaraz guy.
Yeah. And Alcaraz is a Federer guy.
Yes.
Like, of course there's a connection there with Nadal. But
Yeah.
like spiritually, he's always made it clear that he's a Federer guy, really. They relate to one another the most. And I do just want, maybe this is a real stretch, and I don't know how long Federer is scheduled to stay around for. But we know that Alcaraz's interactions with Federer at the Laver Cup in 2024 were very impactful on him. We know that from the documentary he did, and that he was then asked about subsequently, and he did expand on the advice that Roger Federer gave him about viewing his career in five-year sections. I do just wonder if, given that connection between them, Federer being here, I'm not for a moment suggesting he's going to sort of be
on the court
a
coaching.
Ferrero surrogate, but I think the presence of Roger Federer has a positive impact on Carlos Alcaraz, and he is here. He's not usually at slams. I don't know. I wonder if that's a thing for Alcaraz.
Well, I definitely think, like Federer used to do, they want to impress the great champions. They want to show off a little bit. Look what I can do. Federer used to do it in front of his heroes.
But I mean, I agree with that point, but I'm thinking more behind the scenes.
Yeah,
whether they could have just a couple of chats.
The other thing is, I think that is true, and I also think Federer was a contemporary of Ferrero, and I do think that
the new balls please generation.
Yeah, Alcaraz is going to miss that. I think first slam of real note without the guy. I think he's a bit like Federer in that he just sort of seems to sail through tennis life and enjoy it all, but you can't tell me that somebody who's been that significant in his life and in his career isn't going to be missed.
You've just made me realise that I forgot to check with you both who you think is winning the Australian Open.
Yannick Sinner.
I'm assuming, David, given who you've got in the final, you've got Yannick Sinner winning it.
I'm not going to row back on what I've said, but I mean, I could easily be absolutely ridiculously wrong, and that Alcaraz is in that final.
But would you be going for Sinner regardless?
I still think now, given the situation with Ferrero, I think that tips it in Sinner's favour. I do.
Matt?
Yes, right here, right now, I would go Sinner. I mean, the other thing I would say is the last two slams, I've changed my mind during the slam. Like at Wimbledon,
you're allowed.
And again, this is a bit of a Roger Federer humble brag. But at Wimbledon, I thought Alcaraz before the tournament. Seeing what I saw, I changed to Sinner, and then at the US Open, I thought Sinner pre-tournament with the hard court. But seeing what we saw, ended up going for Alcaraz. So I do think we've got to see how the matches play out, and we've got to take stuff from them.
Especially given neither of them have played a warm-up event. We've got nothing.
So I'm mostly going on, okay, I still think Sinner on hard courts here. He's a two-time defending champion. The Alcaraz, bit of instability with Ferrero not being here. To me, that is all pointing Sinner. But
if Alcaraz came out looking like he did at the US
Right.
Open, and he shaved
Do
that
you mean the
hair off. Well, shave it off for a start. I told you he should have that as his Grand Slam thing.
Medvedev has a haircut, and David predicts he'll reach the Australian Open final.
It's good for these guys. You know, but the emphatic manner with which he was handling business at the US Open and hitting the ball. If he comes out looking like, he will do spectacular things for sure. But that was different. If he comes out as that version, then I may be singing a different tune.
He's got a sensation in round one, Alcaraz.
Adam Walton.
Good luck, Adam.
Heard on
The
Australian
country's with
radio earlier, I like Adam Walton's draw.
Yeah, it turned out to be an ironic gag, thank
It's
goodness.
quite good.
Because that person would have had to have their accreditation ripped from them. OK, that's it for our draw show. A bumper.
It's a good draw day, isn't
It's
it?
a good draw day.
It's been great.
Yeah, it has been good. And now I'm looking at a picture of Gus, and she's so gorgeous, and it's a different... We've got a... Renee has sent us multiple pictures of Gus, but I think more to come.
Oh, we've got a Dropbox folder.
Which we very much appreciate. And in fact, this one is a sort of, it's a diptych with yesterday's photo. It's a sort of continuation. So I'll post them on our Instagram as a two-parter. Goodness me, she's beautiful. So hello, Gus. Hello to our mascots, Bodie, Maisie and Roger. To our executive producers, Greg, Chris and Jeff. And to our shout-outs, Matt.
We have Andrew Wilhelm from Denver, Colorado.
Hi, Andrew.
Hello, Andrew.
Andrew says, my husband is named Andy, of course, like Roddick and Murray. Some favourites to watch lately are Lerner Tien, Lorenzo Musetti, Carolina Mukova and Jasmine Paolini. Andrew and Andy have taste, I would say.
Those are, great picks.
Our Cavalier King Charles Waffles couldn't care less about any of it.
Yeah, that's relatable.
Andrew, like the former Wimbledon referee, Andrew Jarrett.
Very good. I've been at a few dinners with him.
Oh.
Yeah, like your lunches with John Blom. A couple called Andrew and Andy. I bet they get a lot of tired gags. So I won't confront them with another one. But that's fun. Thank you, Andrew.
We've also got Rob Becker from New York.
Right, Rob.
Hello, Rob. What a tennis name.
And actually, Rob, this is incredible, like Roger Federer, says, I've played in the 1 Point Slam precursor, back when the USTA had a nationwide tournament for amateurs to get a spot in the US Open qualies.
The US Open is claiming it.
We've been missold the 1 Point Slam.
It wasn't Craig Diley's idea.
Craig was courtside when Rob was playing his 1 pointer.
I thought you were going to say that Rob was at the same wedding that Roger Federer's been at. Rob, I know we should be more imaginative, but your surname's Becker. Like come on.
Benjamin.
Oh, David. Ended Andre Agassi's career, didn't he,
Correct.
Benjamin Becker?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just reading chapter and verse now on Rob's 1 Point Slam experience. Lost promptly on an outside court at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Centre. But depending on the luck of the draw, some people got to play on grandstand and other show courts.
Rob could be another B. Becker, couldn't he? Because Robs are often Bob.
Thanks, Rob.
And finally, we have Bobby, Connor and Luke Murray.
Oh,
Connors and Murray.
this is a crazy set of...
But yeah, we've
Shout out.
really started with the bar high for the Australian Open shout
Hang on,
outs.
Bobby, Connor
and Luke Murray
Oh,
from
great.
New Jersey.
Oh,
Hi, guys.
And they say, we all love and play tennis at Mendham Golf and Tennis Club and attend the US Open every year on the last Thursday of qualifying during Fan Week.
Good choice.
We love Tommy Paul, Lorenzo Musetti, Arina Sabalenka and Jesse Pegula. And we root for Newcastle United in the Premier League. You were doing so well,
Yeah.
Bobby, Connor and Luke.
you didn't need to ruin it.
Yeah, they dashed Matt's Fulham EFL Cup hopes. Sorry about that.
We've lost twice to Newcastle this season. I went
with
to one
one
of
more
them.
fixture to come.
Yeah.
We won't hold it against you. Bobby, Connor and Luke Murray. Is there a tennis? Luke Jensen,
Yes, very good.
Bobby Riggs and Conor McNamara?
That's a commentator from football.
Has he ever done tennis?
5 Live. Not to my knowledge.
I took a swing.
Yeah, it's a good try.
Yeah. Surely
we can have Connors.
Yeah.
Connor Story.
There we go.
Connor Nyland, the Irish
There we
tennis
go.
player
That's
who
even better.
wrote that great book.
A triumph, David. Connor, Bobby, Luke, Rob,
Andrew, Andy.
and Andrew and Andy. Thank you ever so much for being friends of the Tennis Podcast. If you'd like to become a friend and get access to all of our bonus content, ad-free listening, Hannah's column, The Barge, our community platform, all that jazz, then the link is in our show notes, as is the link to subscribe to our newsletter, which is daily during the Grand Slams and has all sorts of excellent content in it, including Matt's stats. The newsletter is the only place to get full access to the Matt Roberts Mind Palace. And that is reason enough to subscribe, folks. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. It is fun being in Melbourne. We'll be back tomorrow for more after Media Day. Speak to you then.